Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something absolutely fascinating and, frankly, highly critical for any global business. We're looking at the high-stakes, often hidden risks of global ERP rollouts, specifically SAP S/HANA. So many massive multinational corporations spend years, and I mean millions of dollars, to upgrade their systems, only to find out at the very end that they've hit a massive, invisible wall. And that wall? It's local tax and legal compliance. It's an illusion of success that can bring a company to an absolute grinding halt. Okay, let's dive into this, because the numbers here are just staggering. $53.6 million. That is not a budget. That is the catastrophic financial loss suffered by Revlon after an SAP go-live at a North Carolina facility. According to SEC filings, they were hit with unfulfilled shipments and massive emergency transport costs just to recover customer service. Why? Well, because the system just could not properly execute the end-to-end flow required to actually get products out the door.
And that brings us to this brutal, undeniable truth. A live system that stops shipments is a failure. Period. I mean, you can have the most beautiful, technically perfect SAP implementation in the world, but if your supply chain halts because your system can't generate the legal documents required to physically move goods, it means absolutely nothing. If you legally cannot ship your products, your business is paralyzed.
Section 1. The Hidden SAP Trap.
So, how do brilliant companies fall into this trap? Well, they mistakenly treat international tax compliance as a simple math problem inside SAP. They think it's just about updating a tax rate table and calling it a day. But the reality of modern global commerce is vastly more complex than just calculating a percentage on a commercial invoice. To understand this new reality, we have to look at the e-document lifecycle. This is the mandatory real-time integration of your orders, shipping, and billing directly with local government tax platforms. You see, governments around the world, they're no longer waiting for your end-of-month reporting. Their platforms actively interrupt traditional ERP flows. They demand real-time data synchronization and approval before a business transaction is even considered legally valid.
Let's move to and see how this builds in a real-world scenario. Check out this interrupted life cycle. Step 1, you process the order and prep the shipment. Step 2, you generate the billing data. But wait, you can't just send that to the customer. Step 3 is the government sync. SAP must actually pause and wait for a government API to receive the data, validate it, and return a unique approval ID or digital signature. Only then, in Step 4, does that data return to SAP so you can legally finalize the whole transaction.
Section 2. Global Tax and Legal Risks. Now, this isn't just happening in one or two places. We've analyzed 9 specific countries from our source material to evaluate their exact risk levels when it comes to these complex SAP S/4HANA rollouts. And the variance in difficulty is wild. Here is the difficulty tier list, and it is a real eye-opener. The S-tier and A-tier countries are absolutely ruthless. You have Brazil and China at the absolute peak of difficulty. Then Mexico, the USA, and Turkey right behind them. What makes these S and A tiers so brutal is that their governments use digital platforms to strictly control legal business transactions. In Mexico, for instance, you have CFDI for billing and the Cartaporte for transporting goods. If those don't perfectly sync with your SAP data in real time, the truck literally does not move.
Let's look closer at Brazil, our first S-tier country. Brazil's complexity is legendary, but it's actually getting even harder. The upcoming 2026 transition to the new CBS and IBS consumption taxes requires mandatory new tax items in their electronic documents. Without these, you simply cannot issue a legally valid invoice. And the source material highlights audits by the Brazilian Court of Accounts on organizations like Embrapa. This proves that failures in ERP implementations here lead to massive legal and operational consequences. Basically, tax functions in Brazil cannot be a mere afterthought.
Then we have our other S-tier, China. China has rolled out the fully digital FAPIO system. This is a game changer because it means your standard SAP invoices and the legal government tax receipts are no longer a simple one-to-one match. The source points to a cautionary tale with the initial ERP pilot of Geely Automobile, treating the local tax requirement as just a simple interface rather than a full end-to-end scenario caused massive cost miscalculations and entirely missing functionalities.
And this brilliantly illustrates that this level of complexity isn't just overseas. It shows that even in A-tier countries like the US, complexity is everywhere. In the United States, there's no nationwide VAT. Instead, following the South Dakota v. Wayfair ruling on economic nexus, things get really interesting. Where a product sits, where it ships from, who installs it, and even drop shipment rules instantly change the tax reality. You have to evaluate all these physical variables just to determine if you can legally collect and remit the right state or local tax.
Section 3. Common structures of failure.
When we analyze these global case studies, we actually have to shift the blame away from the SAP software itself. The failures stem from fundamental strategic errors, and 5 common denominators emerge across the board. First, tax integration was delayed to the very end of the project. Second, they ignored master data quality. Third, they failed to actually retire legacy Excel sheets in old systems. Fourth, they lacked internal business experts, relying way too much on outside consultants. And fifth, they mistook the technical go-live for actual business success. A perfect example from the research is India's Mahagenco. Audits found they left manual Excel inputs and old systems running nearly 5 years after their official SAP go-live. Can you believe that?
Let's zero in on that second point because it is absolutely crucial, the master data crisis. You have to understand that in modern systems, tax calculation rarely fails because you inputted a bad tax rate. It fails because of bad master data. If you have a slightly incorrect customer address, a missing zip code, or an outdated tax ID, the government API will instantly reject the transaction. Your supply chain freezes, not because of bad math, but because of bad data hygiene.
Section 4. Global Design Proposals.
So, how do we fix this and avoid the trap? We need a fundamentally new way to design global templates. By separating global frameworks from local realities, we see that a one-size-fits-all company code approach is just doomed to fail. Instead, you need global standards for the structure, governing the e-document lifecycle, standardizing how errors are handled, and enforcing strict tax master data governance. But you must maintain local standards for the execution, the specific tax rates, the exact digital document formats required by the local government, and those highly localized API connections.
Furthermore, your design has to survive the real world. I want to stress the absolute necessity of exception testing. Real-world business isn't just sending perfect invoices on a sunny day. It's dealing with returns, cancellations, and complex bulk payments. It's handling a warranty replacement where the price is literally zero, but you still need a legal movement document. And crucially, what happens to your SAP system when the local government server goes down for 3 hours? If you haven't tested for that API timeout, your warehouses stop moving.
This is especially vital for specific industries. Take manufacturing risks, for instance. If you sell industrial pumps or machinery, it's rarely a simple product sale. You are combining a physical product sale with an installation service, and maybe a long-term warranty on top of it. In places like Mexico with the carte porte, or Vietnam with the foreign contractor tax, combining goods and services triggers multi-layered tax events instantly. Your system needs to know exactly how to split and report those events flawlessly.
Section 5. What is true success?
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how starkly it contrasts the old metric of simply turning the system on with the reality of legally accepted transactions. If a technical go-live isn't the benchmark, we need to radically redefine what a successful multi-million-dollar SAP rollout actually looks like. The old definition of success was just turning the machine on. System is go-live. Standard features are active. But the new definition of success? It's based entirely on reality. True success means your legacy Excel sheets are fully abolished. It means government APIs actually respond and accept your transactions in real time. And it means your local teams are self-sufficient, capable of running the business without an army of external consultants.
So, I leave you with this final, provocative question to ponder. Look at your own organization's roadmap and ask yourself, is your SAP S/4HANA rollout actually building a legally compliant global business foundation, or are you just building a very, very expensive calculator? It is entirely up to how you handle the hidden tax and legal realities. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you on the next one.